Sometimes there's the claim that a person is born gay, or has this gay gene or something like that. And Father Paul Chek has very well expressed in his writings that there's inherent in that considerable misunderstanding. First, the terminology isn't as respectful as it should be, because it's always better to refer to a person who perhaps has a tendency or an illness, not just to say disabled, blind, gay, because that itself is very much, I think, falling short of the fact we are talking about human beings who might be struggling or being afflicted with individual situations. Focused always on the person. It's like, I'm married to a gambler. Well, that's not the way to talk. You're married to a human being, a husband or a wife, usually a husband, who struggles with gambling and perhaps has done for 30 years, as I've witnessed many times. But the danger is, an area of our life could be very delicate, and it becomes so overwhelming that we can't think of the person other than outside of that sphere. We can't. And we reduce the person to that aspect. And therefore, they will feel judged. They'll feel summed up. They feel very much inadequate. So we need to examine ourselves on these things as well. However, the presence of a so-called gay gene would not be consistent with the experience that we have of identical twins. Of only about 10% we have identical twins. If we have one of whom experiences same-sex attraction, you would expect, having the same genetic makeup, that they both would have it. That's not the case. On that occasion, only about 10% would experience that same-sex attraction and that be shared, but the majority of the times that's not the case. And then there are people, as we'll hear later, who perhaps have struggled with the same-sex attraction, and then through a whole host of factors that they have been open to, they have turned in a different direction and have opened themselves and have very beautifully entered into a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, and have entered into marriage and a family. So what happened? Did they change their genes? What was it? Be aware. Be aware of these things. The Catechism does speak clearly about the objectively disordered tendency. And sometimes that can seem jarring. But it's mentioned on reflection of a Christian understanding of human nature, which by its very ordering should be towards life and love, at least open to life and for the gift of life. And it's rooted very intimately in the complementarity of sexual beings, not just of the sexes, because sexuality goes right through to the core of our being, psychologically, physiologically, and emotionally, and spiritually as well. So you have within each of us a readiness according to the plan of God, according to our human nature. And nature is essence in operation, the very essence, the core of the person. And essence comes from the Latin word esse, which means to be. The very being of the human person is expressed in their nature, which means it's written into who we are, that we are not for ourselves, that in some sense we are incomplete by ourselves. Not defective, not evil, but we are made for gift. We are made for others. We are social beings by nature. And that is in the most beautiful way revealed through the beautiful gift of married love, where a man and a woman make the complete donation of themselves, one to the other, freely, exclusively, open to life in love, faithful, the gift of them whole selves. They may not be able to have children. However, there is a complete and fundamental and permanent openness to life. And when you consider that in the context of same-sex expression, being of its very nature sterile and incapable of that gift of life, then immediately there are some things that jump out at us and say, then why are we the way that we are? Friends, there is much that we need to listen to. There is much invitation for humility. There is a ready need for us to be open to the support of others, to the wisdom of the church, to the skill of the sciences, the social sciences, and in a particular way, the strength, the enduring strength of friendship. In any struggle, without true Christian friendship, it is always much more difficult. I finish just with some of the words of Father Czech, who says, regrettably, many people think that all that the Catholic Church offers to men and women with same-sex attraction is the word no. Like all mothers, the Church does say no to the self-destructive and counterfeit pleasure of sin out of a sense of love for her children. Yet that no is embedded in a larger yes, a yes to Him who is love, and who gave Himself to the Father and to us from the cross. The Lord asked St. Paul to find strength in his weakness through the power of the cross. The courage postulate expresses that same redemptive paradox to men and women with same-sex attraction and urges them to trust in what they see in the life of the Master and his apostle. In the context of these few thoughts, I just give an opportunity now, because I do need to leave. If there are any questions that I can perhaps shed some light on now, we'll have to be brief, and I'm afraid there will be no chance for anonymity. So, and we won't presume that if you're asking a question, it automatically applies to yourself. So, is there any question that you may have about what I have mentioned or in general? Please feel free. Scratch, I'll take a scratch. Is that a question? This Waterhouse? Yes, please.
I just have a question. So if I understand from what you were saying, is that the basic church's approach to people with same-sex attraction is that this is to act upon that would be a sin, just like any other sin that any other person would experience. But what is the church's approach to that, to those people? Are those people meant to be alone for their whole lives, or is that the?
Yep. Excellent. If you didn't hear the question, it was commenced with a point that we understand that the church's position is that to act out on homosexual inclination itself would be sinful in the eyes of God, and that is the church's position. Yes, the position is that to knowingly, and to be aware, to be fully conscious of the fact that that it is not God's plan and it's not written into our nature, therefore it's not in the law of our hearts to give ourselves unto someone else who is of the same sex. Therefore, to do so knowingly would be a grave sin. And then, where does that leave a person in the eyes of the church? First, it leaves them in the heart of the church without the slightest hesitation. No more, no less a Catholic than anyone else. With everyone else's struggles, in the heart of the church, completely welcome and called, as we all are, to live a life of love, a love of chastity. And that's a challenge for all of us. So a person who perhaps has a very deep inclination towards same-sex attraction would therefore be supported, guided, and perhaps there was the opportunity to receive professional support for them to understand themselves. And it does happen, as we'll hear later, that some people do experience a very profound change where that tendency does not remain in the same way as it did before. So they should be open to the grace of God. And the church would invite that person to live a life of deep prayer and friendship and fellowship. And in no sense are they to be left to a life of loneliness